I'd like to welcome everyone to London City Council meeting. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silent reflection. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. Clerk, could you please take the roll call?
Russell. Present. Peters.
Here.
Robinson. Here. Hayes.
Present.
Hitt.
Here.
Laser.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
All right, and has everyone had a chance to take a look at the minutes from our last meeting? Do we have any questions, corrections on that? All right, all in favor of approving those minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, minutes pass. We do not have any communications or announcements. On to our audience concerns. Let's see here. All right. And when I call your name, please come to the podium, state your name and your address, and you'll have 2 minutes, please. All right, first we have Tiffany Flax. Is Tiffany Flax here? Hello?
I'm Tiffany Flax. Address is 126 Country Ridge Lane. Is that it? That's all you need? No?
That's it,
Okay.
thank you.
All right. You're going to hear from people today that are going to talk about how the ordinance is unconstitutional and can't be enforced. They'll talk about the legal ramifications and lawsuits that could be brought up. But I wanted to say more from a personal aspect because I was pro-life for so long. I've seen some of the division that it's caused between people in our community, which was the biggest thing that I think I did not want to happen in our town. We are in a small town, and I think it's important for all of us to mind what we say to one another. And I know that when I was part of that group, that I was never talking about people or trying to raise awareness out of malice. It was truly out of concern for what I thought was a demographic that was not being spoken up for. So first of all, I'd like to say that I don't have any kind of hate or grudge towards anyone that is on the opposing side of this. But one thing that I recognize is the words and actions that I was using at that time, even though they were being spoken for something that I thought was right and something that I thought needed to be said, I was hurting women that were breathing, living humans that were cognizant of the things that I was saying. And I don't think that I was maybe aware of the effect that was having on these women. And these were women that were in situations that I was not aware of whether the choices that they were making were the best for their family and their situation. And I think not only is the wording of the ordinance important because the people in our community will know about that, but we can't possibly understand what some of these women are going through, whether it's a teenager that can't speak to her parents, that they don't want to talk about sex and contraceptives with her, or a woman in college who is using birth control that failed, that knows that she can't possibly go through a pregnancy or she will not get her degree. Someone who can't afford to take care of a child, whatever the case is, I can't tell her what to do. I don't think anyone has the right to tell her what to do. She has to be able to make that decision for herself. And while I think that it's important to speak up for children, in this case, it's her body that has to be used to do that. There are physical ramifications of a pregnancy. There are mental health implications, financial implications. She is the only one that can determine whether that is right for her. And I think that we need to take that into consideration.
Thank you. Next, we have, the last name is Brown. All right, please state your name and your address, and you have 2 minutes, please.
Okay, awesome. Hi, my name is Sierra Dobbs Brown. My address is 23 West Como Avenue. That's not in London, but Council President Comer and the rest of the City Council members, thank you so much for welcoming me today to say a few words, as well as at your previous council meetings. I'm Sierra Dobbs Brown, and as you know by my address, I'm not a London resident, but I'm the Central Ohio Regional Field Manager with Planned Parenthood Advocates of Ohio, which means that I have the pleasure of doing organizing work with people that are in the community of London. And I've been led by and collaborating with the incredible people in this community around one thing. They all know that this ordinance is not what the City of London needs. This knowing comes from a place of care. The people I have talked with care deeply about this city, and they have seen the costly litigation, the boycotts, the public ridicule that other cities in Ohio and across the country have been strapped with as a result of anti-abortion ordinances just like this one. These folks care deeply about their leaders and want to see them prioritize projects London, Ohio needs, not prioritize the political agenda of an out-of-state extremist named Markley Dixon and whoever he can tap as an attempt to make this happen in the next city. We've seen what happened in other cities in Ohio. Lebanon Mayor Kathy Grossman stepped down after years because her community lost faith in her. Mason, Ohio ordinance sponsor TJ Honorlaw lost his re-election nearly immediately after putting forth this ordinance because people in these communities knew that this was not what they needed. The conversations I have been a part of have shown me a community that takes pride in a council that leads with good faith. And I can assure you that just as we saw in other cities, trust is being eroded as this unconstitutional ordinance is pushed forward. Perhaps most importantly, the London residents I have had the pleasure of getting to know over the last several weeks care deeply about each other and about everyone else in London. They are acutely aware of the realities of this ordinance. London, Ohio needs access to legal abortion. This ordinance would not only ban abortion in all instances, but would prohibit people in London from caring for and supporting their loved ones. Think about a parent taking their child to their appointment, or a compassionate friend helping someone pay for their care, getting criminal charges because they tried to care for someone they love deeply. This extreme anti-abortion ordinance goes as far as to call medication abortion contraband, which would impact patients needing a medication abortion for medical or personal reasons, like sexual assault. I have like 3 more sentences.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Those impacts do not tell the story of a community that cares for one another, but one that is prioritizing a political agenda. This ordinance is harmful. When abortion is not an option, people and their children suffer. I have heard through my time here that that you don't have OBGYNs here, that your women's clinic is closing in your hospital, and that is directly related because people know that this is not a safe place for them to practice medicine when you're pushing forth ordinances like this. So I really urge a no vote. It's been a pleasure to be welcomed into your community and to work with other people, and I really encourage you to do what's right for the people of London. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Ariana Ybarra.
Hello.
Hello. Please
so
state
far
your,
from me.
your name and your address.
So hi, my name is Ariana Ibarra, and I'm also not in London. I'm at 31 West Markeson in Columbus, but really glad to be here and speak to you all. And so I am the Central and Southern Ohio organizer with NARAL Pro-Choice Ohio, and I have been in Lebanon and in Mason, dealing with the same exact ordinance, and just like in those cities, people in London did not ask for this ordinance. And so, I'm very appalled that London City Council has made the decision, just like those other cities, to ignore the needs of its residents in favor of pursuing an unconstitutional and unenforceable abortion ban that originates from Texas. The abortion ban wasn't written by anybody on City Council or thought of or asked for by London residents. So why is this being considered? Other than to further stigmatize abortion or attempt to limit or completely remove London residents' ability to access abortion. So not only is this ordinance a complete overstep of what city government should be controlling and dealing with, it's blatantly unconstitutional in more ways than one. Although the supporters of this ordinance and Markley Dixon, the people in East Texas Right to Life that brought it all to you, you've been told that there's nothing to worry about from a legal standpoint, and that's not at all true. London's proposed abortion ban is an unconstitutional interference with interstate commerce, since it aims to criminalize the possession or distribution of FDA-approved medications, misoprostol and mifepristone, the medications that are used in a medication abortion. So this provision could lead to a federal lawsuit against the city. And additionally, as pointed out by London's own law director and the law director in Salina as well, paying a lawyer to defend the ordinance in court challenges is not the only potential cost to the city of London when sued, because London will be sued for trying to pass an unconstitutional ban. Is that my time?
Yes.
Okay, that was okay. So, where was I? So, if you all lose in court, once you are sued, the city will be liable for hundreds of thousands of dollars in attorney's fees, none of which will be paid for by that outside entity, which is pushing this ordinance on the people of London. So, as local officials, you know, your job is supposed to be to make decisions that are in the best interest of your constituents. And so what is the benefit of this ordinance if it's unconstitutional and unenforceable? So,
Thank you.
thank you.
All right, next we have Michael Norman. And please state your name and your address.
Sorry, I was in the back row. Michael Norman, 188 South Oak Street here in the great city of London, Ohio. I think you know I'm here to speak against Ordinance 207-21. What you will be surprised is I have no packets. I have nothing to give you. I have no questions. I just have a statement. And that statement is this: if this ordinance is passed, it will be unenforceable, sorry. And I say this for three reasons. The first reason is when this was originally brought to us, it was brought forth so that no clinics could be put in the city of London. Obviously, to do that, you have to have zoning restrictions. There's no zoning restrictions, strike one. Strike two is it says that if we pass this, abortion-inducing drugs will be outlawed here in London. I know personally from going down to Lebanon, who's already had this in effect for 4 months, that I can go into any of the pharmacies down there and get the abortion-inducing drugs. So there's strike two. And then finally, we're told that abortions will be stopped at any stage for any reason in London. And that, again, from the sponsor's mouth himself, we have to act within the state court laws and the state court rulings. And right now, the rulings of the state is abortions are allowable up to 20 weeks. And the last time I checked, London, Ohio is in the state of London, or in the state of Ohio, not London. And I'd like to thank you for giving us each 2 minutes tonight, because I kind of know what it feels like to be an auctioneer now. So thank you. Have a nice evening.
All right, Stephen Miller.
Jenkinson Avenue, Ward 3, Stephen Miller.
All right.
Today I stand before you in opposition to Ordinance 207-21. That opposition is not because I support abortion, it's because I support the rule of law. The Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of Ohio, and the local laws of the great city of London. My opposition is because 207-21 violates the First Amendment to the United States Constitution by limiting and chilling speech in Section 6.80B2 of this abortion ban. My opposition is because 207-21 violates the 14th Amendment by outlawing the procurement and performance of a constitutionally protected activity in Section 6.80A, an activity that the Supreme Court case, Planned Parenthood versus Casey, deemed constitutional in 1992 by making a judgment on the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution. My opposition is because 207-21 violates the 18th Amendment to the Ohio Constitution by making laws that are in conflict of Ohio Revised Code. My opposition is because 207-21 violates the city law by creating a conflict of laws with Ohio law laid out in City Code 202.6. My opposition is because 207-21 makes no exception for rape or incest when procuring or performing an abortion. My opposition is because 207-21 criminalizes fathers, mothers, husbands, and friends of people who want an abortion. This is a constitutionally protected medical procedure. This is a bad law. This is a bad law that our law director said is unconstitutional. And I say it's blatantly unconstitutional. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next, we have Mariah Miller. All right, please state your name and your address. You have 2 minutes, please.
My name's Mariah Miller, 225 Jenkinson Avenue. I'm here in opposition to Ordinance 20721. According to our law director, Jennifer Hitt, this ordinance is not only unconstitutional and unenforceable, the ordinance is filled with what I believe to be personal opinion that is in defiance of the federal government, the Supreme Court, and the Constitution. Passing this ordinance means the City Council is taking a position that puts their authority in contrast with the laws of this nation. Moving to London, the small town environment was attractive, and the people were friendly and kind, and I still stand by that. This ordinance will cause a divide within the community based on an ordinance that cannot be enforced. I have a family that is growing, and this signals to me that London may not be a safe place for us. To be free to make personal choices about my health care and the health care of my children is something I didn't expect to be at risk here. Supposedly, the ordinance will prevent a clinic from moving in and functioning. What I find disturbing is that our City Council may want to limit healthcare services in a growing community, particularly with an ordinance that provides no exception for rape or incest. To pass an ordinance that is unconstitutional and unenforceable threatens the authority of our City Council, their effectiveness and sincerity in upholding the Constitution. As far as legal trouble goes, I want to quote regarding Mason, Ohio's ordinance. Laura Streitman, Executive Director of Cincinnati Right to Life, was interviewed by Local 12 and was asked, "Isn't one of the strategies to get sued so this can move up to the Supreme Court?" She said, "You're right, that could absolutely possibly happen. With the struggles of pregnancy complications, sexual assault, failed birth control, among a host of other reasons, I urge the City Council to stay out of the private medical business of its citizens. Abortion is legal in Ohio up to 20 weeks. It is health care. I urge you to vote no on Ordinance 20721. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we have George Schwartz. Can you state your name and your address, please?
My name is George Schwartz. I live at 9025 Pringle Benjamin Road, London, Ohio. I'm not here to argue the legal ramifications of this ordinance. I'm just here to tell you that I support it. I disagree with some of the people that have said City Council has ignored the citizens of London, Ohio. I think you've been very fair. You've let both sides speak. And I'm here to speak for the unborn, for the citizens of London, Ohio who don't have a voice in this and can't speak. And I know what the laws to some degree are, and I know this ordinance may be challenged. But for too long, I would not speak out because I didn't want to be attacked, personally attacked, intimidated by people that believe they have the right to kill an innocent child in the womb. And they say this is about a choice, their choice. They say it's my body, my choice. Well, that baby is a human being too. And that baby has its own DNA and its own blood. And under the Constitution, I believe it's entitled to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, I know since 1973, Roe versus Wade, this has been the law of the land. That doesn't make it right. And I'm going to do everything I can. I'm going to speak out. I'm going to stand up for the unborn, especially here in London, Ohio. And I love London. I love the people of London. Some have said that, you know, it's going to divide us and we're not going to attack anybody. We're not going to threaten anybody. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next, we have Rebecca Rickenburg.
Hello, my name is Rebecca Rickenburg. I live at 4183 State Route 56 in London. I am here in support of the ordinance. I grew up in Lebanon, and I'm very proud to say that they have passed, along with Mason, who has passed. Mason is in a very controversial area. And if they can do it, we can do it. We have the support. I've been in contact with many people in Lebanon. I do a lot of business there. I do a lot of business here. I'm happy to go down to Lebanon. I don't need to be here. But I'm very happy to come support our businesses, our festivals, our events. I'm very happy to bring my family and walk through this town and support everyone I can. A lot of us don't have the time to sit here and badmouth each other and call names and be mean to each other because of our opposing views. In fact, most of us in support of life share that same respect and dignity of all life. And in my time of saying that I've been for this ordinance, I personally have been attacked, and I know that we probably will be too. We've been threatened already by lawsuits, by many other things. But that doesn't mean we should back down and we should give in. It wasn't too long ago that there were other groups of people who are not considered people, who weren't allowed to vote, whose life was not respected at all. In fact, we're still seeing some of that. But a child inside the womb is no less of a child because they're on the inside instead of the out. And they are people too, and people have the right to life. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we have Todd Rickenburg.
Henry, I have one more.
One more? Okay.
You have Jane's, right?
I have Martin Kembler.
Jane Batdorf's in front of you.
Is what?
Jane Batdorf's in front of you.
See it. I'll put it in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Todd
State your,
Rickenburg.
your name and address, and you have 2 minutes, please.
4183 State Route 56. Thank you, council, for letting me speak tonight. I would like to speak in favor of Ordinance 20721. So I would like to talk about the financial side of everything. We've heard all these rumors that people state that Lebanon's losing money. Well, I'm good friends, my wife's good friends with Adam Matthews, Lebanon City Council. And I asked him, so have you guys seen financial losses since you passed this? And his answer was unequivocally no. They have had, in 2021, they have had their income taxes are up 14% from 2020. That's 7% over 2019. And then I went on about festivals because people have said that festivals are losing money. That's wrong. They've all had record-breaking years except for one, and that was because of a tornado warning to the Blues Festival. So the financial gains, I believe, outweigh the negatives to this ordinance, because every lawsuit that has been brought against this ordinance has been withdrawn, to best of my knowledge. I would like to leave you guys with this. You guys have a hard decision, but at least you guys can make a decision. The unborn children cannot make a decision for themselves when their family decides, someone decides to end their lives in abortion. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, next we have Martin Kembler.
Hello, I'm Martin Kembler. I live at 11 Fairview Avenue, London, Ohio. Wow, I want to say thank you all for allowing me to be here and speak and give me a couple minutes. I really don't want to say that I'm in opposition of this ordinance or in favor of this ordinance. I think there's a lot better issues or a lot better time and resources could be spent. These resources that are being spent on this ordinance could be spent in better ways. I know people that are going to bed hungry tonight, sleeping out on the ground tonight, and we're worried about, something that doesn't really exist. It's kind of like the boogeyman. It's kind of like the guy that has the banana in his ear. What are you doing putting that banana in here? It's keep the elephants away. Well, there's no elephants around here. Well, it must be working. As far as I know, there's not being abortions performed. All this is doing is wasting time, money on a non-issue in London. I'd be willing to talk to anybody one-on-one about any of this stuff. But I do know there's people in London sleeping on the ground tonight, and I know there's kids going to bed hungry. And this is what we're talking about. And there's hundreds of people on drugs out there that, we have a real issue with, there's a lot of the small towns do with meth and heroin and stuff. And this is what we're doing. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and you said Jane Batdorf?
No, that's the one you have in front
No,
of you.
no,
That's
Did
the,
I use my 2 minutes? I have one more thing to say.
oh, go ahead. You said there's another one?
Brendan Shea.
This is being very influenced, this ordinance, by a lot of people that live outside the city
Jane
of
is
London.
on a piece of paper you were gonna read.
This is a community. I am very much community oriented, and I love my community. And, don't think it's right that people that don't live in the community have something to do with this.
Brendan, I'll do
It's
Brendan.
under my computer.
I'll do Brendan's first.
What's that?
Let me do Brendan's first. Right now, I'd like to ask
Okay,
Brendan Shea.
thank you, thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening. I want to thank you for the way you've conducted this debate over a number of evenings, and thanks for putting up with everything and the time and everything that goes into it. Brendan Shea, London resident, business owner, 60 Logan Avenue, president of Madison County Right to Life. I just want to make a couple points this evening. I've heard it said that you have to check your personal views at the door and do what's best for the city of London, and I understand that. But I do want you to know that the residents of London picked you, voted for you for a reason, to represent them. I know the majority, if not the supermajority of you, are professed Republicans, maybe even ran on a Republican platform or enjoyed the support of the Republican Party. The Republican Party platform is one of pro-life. And again, the voters chose you. So that was point number one. The second is, as much as everyone wants the best thing for the city of London, and no one wants a lawsuit, there's been evidence put forward to suggest that the likelihood of that is low, but nevertheless, anything worth doing in life certainly has risks involved, and this is no exception. But with that said, the oath that you took as an elected official, and I've taken the same oath as an elected member of the State Board of Education, was not an oath to do everything in your power to make sure that a frivolous lawsuit never comes to London. The oath you took was to uphold the Constitution. And so I would invite you over the next couple weeks to read from cover to cover, I'm sure you have, but to revisit the Constitution. And if in your heart of hearts, if in your conscience, you believe that the Constitution provides for a right to snuff out the child in the womb, then I think your conscience is inviolable, and you should vote against this ordinance. But if, as I believe many of you do, you believe in the right to life, but also that the Constitution provides no such right, then I would urge you to support wholeheartedly this ordinance. So I thank you so much for your consideration. I stand over the next couple of weeks ready and available to work with you or to answer any questions you may have. Thank you all.
Thank you. All right, next I have a letter that we received from Jane Batdorf. Couldn't see it because it was under my computer. So, after reading the Columbus, and she lives at 861 Circle Drive in London. After reading the Columbus Dispatch article on October 27th, the councilman from the 3rd Ward does not understand the Constitution of the United States and the separation of church and state. You have no right as a council member to even bring this sanctuary city for the unborn to London or anywhere else. You, Mr. Smith, and other pro-lifers are trying to send these young women back to the dark ages before birth control pills, in the time of coat hanger abortions and backstore quacks. There could be some women in your parish who have had abortions, and rightly so, non-viable pregnancies, rape, incest, and birth control pills that can cause stroke, and are just some of the reasons why it is none of your business. I have a friend of mine whose daughter was raped at Wittenberg and became pregnant. My friend decided to raise the child as her own. The result was that her daughter was reminded every day of the rape. She ended up in a psychiatric hospital and was still there the last time I heard. There have been young girls, 10, 12, 13, 14 years of age, and so on, who have been overwhelmed by older males who were after only one thing, to have sex, be then ignored their responsibility when the girls get pregnant. Yes, sir, are not the judge of any, you, sir, are not the judge of anyone. A solution to your belief is to order all male children at the age of puberty, approximately 12 years of age, to have a vasectomy. When a couple decides to have children, they can have the procedure reversed. It is all about you men who choose to get women pregnant. Take responsibility for your own penises. Well, thank you to everyone who took the time to come tonight. And this council meeting, I know you said thanks to us for allowing you to come here, but this is your council meeting. We are here for you. You chose us to represent you, but this is your council meeting. It belongs to you. All right, so thank you, everyone, for your input. And now we will move on to our committee reports. We'll start with Mr. Smith.
I don't have much to report. We haven't had the BPU meeting for this month yet, but it was moved to November 22nd at 6:30 p.m.
Okay. Okay, on to Mrs. Blazer.
I attended the public safety meeting, and the safety service director reported that lights for the new traffic signals were ordered. It's going to take about 30 to 60 days to get most of the parts, but some of them may be about 90 days out. And that he did discuss like what we're doing at Second and Main Street to ensure the safety of pedestrians, that we're well marking, that those crosswalks, we're making sure there's signage to remind everybody that pedestrians have the right of way. And we're also, he came up with a plan to actually, to remove some parking spots, Oak and High on each corner, 4th and Main on the southwest corner, Main and Second, one on each side, and making us compact car parking zone to increase the visibility at those intersections that are losing the traffic lights. We also discussed a temporary store permit. It was brought to our attention that there was a law on the books that if you wanted to have some type of temporary store, it would cost you $250 a year. We just saw the newest update on this law was made in 1958. Most of it was made in 1932. We made the, to change that to make it the same as what the food vendors license is about, so that it will be a lot less costly, because we thought it was pretty much the same as the other. It wasn't quite fair on one side versus the other. And we also discussed Ordinance 207-21. And then on the budget side, it's mostly, we'll be talking about it in, we talk about some of the legislation that's being brought. We'll get into it more deeply, but just that, I know Rex and Kenna have worked very hard to update next year's budget so that there's not as many resolutions coming to council that need to be passed right away to increase monies because we're short on certain line items. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Mr. Hitt.
Yeah, I attended the safety meeting, and I'll give the fire chief's report. As far as departmental EMS training, they went over pediatric respiratory illness and treatment. As far as the fire staff training, they did aerial operations training. They continue to do new hire orientation. They provided EMS for the football games. They assisted Masonic Temple for preparation in their candy sale. They participated in the Lutheran Church trunk or treat. They participated in the Pink Out football games. They had a fire safety talk at St. Pat's, K through 2 grades. They also had a fire safety talk at London Elementary School, and they completed the annual full-time staff agility test. And the next safety meeting is December 14th at 5 p.m. in the meeting room over here. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hayes.
Okay, my colleagues have covered just about everything I was going to say. Public safety meeting was held on November 9th. All members attending. October 12th minute meetings were approved. Police and fire chief reports were read, which are being highlighted this evening by Mr. Hitt and myself momentarily. Public forum on Ordinance 207-21 was held. Very businesslike, very orderly, and I commend all of those that were in attendance for their behavior. It was voted on by the committee to send this ordinance to council for hearing, and this legislation is on the agenda for tonight. Police report, currently accepting applications for police officer through lateral transfers, those with experience and current certification. Current civil service application for those outside of lateral transfers closed on October 30th. They're going to review the applications at this month's meeting for processing. We have one current open position and another will open in December. Negotiations between the city and Ohio Patrolmen's Benevolent Association units were completed and ratified. Police Department participated in various public relations events and presentations at local schools and organizations. We have obtained a new cruiser from capital funding and are awaiting the parts and scheduling for the upfitting. Extra patrol units were assigned to trick or treat on the 28th, no issues. And a good thing, we talked about the City of London. A fundraiser was conducted for our Shop with Cop program, raising significant funds for the program to be conducted in December. I want y'all to hear this. Over $9,000. $9,000 was raised. And I don't remember it ever being anywhere close to that. So thank you to the city and whoever contributed to that. We appreciate it so much. Calls for service are up to 6,500. It's an increase of 7% from 2020. And the current issue on the traffic light study, there have been no crashes. I'm going to repeat that. There have been no crashes related to the intersections without the working signals. And a good thing, the study will end on November 22nd, which I believe is Monday. So the traffic study will be over. As Mr. Hitt said, next meeting is December 14th, 5 p.m. in our conference room. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Robinson?
I have nothing at this time.
Okay, Mr. Peters?
Just let everybody know, public service meeting will be December 1st at 1 p.m.
All right, thank you. Mrs. Russell?
Okay, I attended the Finance Committee and the auditor's report. The October books closed out okay, and it's open enrollment for health insurance is in process right now, and they are beginning to do the 2021 closeouts for the end of the year. Okay, and we're going to have some legislation. The budget will be on for the second reading, and I would want to reiterate with Councilwoman Glazer that Rex and Kenna, our auditor, they did a line-by-line ad and making sure that all the Medicare retirement, including the loan payments and increases in union contract raises, that it's all figured out. So next year, council won't have to do all of these adjustments because the funds are running short. So they did a line-by-line item on that. And from our tax department, I believe she said the taxes were up 13%. Now, I'm doing this off the top of my head because I went to another meeting after that, finance meeting, and I wrote all over my finance notes, so I couldn't decide for that. So I believe they said it was up 13% or
15.
15% compared to 2020, compared to 2020. Okay, and the Park and Recs, there'll be some expenditures brought up for legislation. And also the fire department, their pension payout fund is going to be running short about $75,000 due to accumulation of leave, and the employees, they can cash it in at the end of the year. That's going to bring their pension fund short about $75,000. Is that right, Rex? Mm-hmm. Okay, and so we'll have legislation for that too. And our next finance meeting will be December the 6th at 4:30 in the conference room. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Oh, nope, the traffic lights have been ordered. And they're gonna take about 90 days to be delivered, pending anything. Ship doesn't get stranded out there on the ocean somewhere, so they have been ordered, okay?
Now, did they come in about where we thought?
Good evening, and thanks for everyone for coming out tonight. I would like to start off by apologizing for not being at the meeting tonight.
He always interrupts. I'm sorry.
Yeah. It's the tie. I think it's too tight. It's cutting off oxygen. So the lights, did they come in about where we thought they didn't increase or anything?
No, did not increase. Actually,
Good.
the Rex was pretty close to what the cost would come in.
Good job. All right, that sounds good. All right, on to our City official reports.
And bear with me here. Now, Pat, you can speak.
For not being at the meeting tonight. As I spoke about at the last city council meeting, I'm currently at the Junior Achievement fundraising event. I committed to help an MC and auction the event back in August. Junior Achievement is a great partner with the city and the local schools, and anytime I can help them out, I am happy to do so. If anyone is interested in teaching Junior Achievement classes, please search the internet or Facebook for Junior Achievement of the Mad River region. They're always looking for volunteers, and this is a great way to give back to the community and also the kids. I just finished up teaching 2 classes at St. Patrick's School, and it was definitely worth the time and effort. Last Thursday was Veterans Day. I would like to thank all the veterans for their service, their bravery, and sacrifice. These are the heroes who protect our lives, our rights, and freedoms. I cannot thank them enough for everything they do for us and their commitment to our country. Veterans Day is celebrated just one day, but it reminds us that we need to appreciate them every day. We need to show them the respect and gratitude every time that we see them. I was able to attend the Madison County Life Care Alliance Meals on Wheels community gathering last week. This was a small event where they discussed the past year, recognize volunteers, and give information on all of their programs. The Meals on Wheels program here in our community is doing very well, but they have increased dramatically, services have, since the pandemic. They continue to serve all those in need with service every day, and there's no wait list. With the increase in meals delivered, they are always looking for more volunteers, and if you are interested, please contact Life Care Alliance. Congratulations to the London High School football team on their terrific season. They fell short this past Friday, losing by 1 point to the number 1 seed in the 3rd round of the playoffs. I'm not going to dwell on the not-so-stellar performance of the officiating, but focus on the overall success of the season. These young men put in hard work and were able to finish the season 10-3. I'd also like to congratulate the London High School cheer squad on their 2nd place finish at the CBC Championships. Yesterday, Kroger had their ribbon cutting for their store's remodel. This was a nice event, and the $1.9 million renovation looks great. We really appreciate them and thank them for their partnership to not only our community, but also the city. You have in front of you tonight legislation pertaining to the improvements the city will be doing at Merrimack Park. We are excited to improve that area by bringing in new playground equipment and updating the facilities. Thank you to the Merrimack Miracle Group for their dedication and their donation to help with this project. They are continuing their fundraising efforts to help make more upgrades to the parks in the future. If you'd like to help them out, please contact that group. Regarding Ordinance 207-21, I have the utmost confidence that the London City Council will make the right decision. This legislation was brought to City Council before it had time to make it through all the committees. It has now made it through the process and is back on the voting floor. City Council members have had the time they needed to research and obtain all information to make an educated decision. This legislation contains a lot of material and a lot of factors that the 7 voting members of our legislative body will have to consider. I believe the members of City Council have done their due diligence, and I have faith that they will make the right decision, a decision that represents the City of London and all of the people that they serve. I do want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving, and I hope you all enjoy the day. Now on to the Molo Fun Fact, which is the number 260. Parks and Recreation Youth Basketball has begun, and we are sitting at 260 participants. That is quite a few kids, and it surpasses our pre-COVID numbers. I had the opportunity to help out with evaluations last week, and it was great to see all the kids having fun and very excited for the season. Practices started this week, and the games will begin in early December. So thank you to the Recreation Department for their hard work, and we look forward to a fun and successful season. Thank you all for your time, and have a great evening.
Everyone, I apologize for not being a technical whiz up here. I cut him off at the beginning, and he said that he couldn't be here because of prior engagement before all of this legislation was brought to council. So I know he would want you to know that if he could be here, he would. So thank you.
All right, on to old business. Ordinance 207-21, a motion to read by title or number.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Clerk, please read the ordinance.
Ordinance 20721, sponsored by Anthony Smith. Ordinance outlawing abortion, declaring London a sanctuary for the unborn, making various provisions and findings, providing for severability, establishing an effective date.
So before we get into the legislation very much, I sent in the beginning of October, I think it was just after, maybe the beginning of the second week, amendments that we needed to make. These are just clearing up some things, and then the legislation had some things that did not need to be in there, so we need to remove those. I did check with Jennifer. With you all receiving those amendments, we don't have to vote every single line item. I could make an amendment to, or make a motion to amend the legislation, one amendment, and that will cover all the changes that were made. But the amendments are what has been discussed in Finance, Safety Committee, and like I said, everyone received a copy of that, I think around October 9th, around there, close to that. So if anyone doesn't have any questions, before we go any further, I would like to make a motion that we would accept amendments to 207.
First of all, is everyone clear on what those amendments are?
So these weren't amended in
No,
committee?
so we can discuss them,
So
but we can't amend them.
That's the issue that I'm having with it all is,
Yeah.
I did not understand when you sent those over that it was gonna be amended into it, and it wasn't done in committee. So
Yeah.
the final version I thought was gonna come to council, which I'm hearing
Well, it's
tonight.
here tonight, and
It's
that
not-
is what
it's-
happened.
It's not the final version.
No, this is so we read the legislation, and we discussed that. It had to go to, with it being sent back to committees, that we had amendments that we needed to make. We can't make those amendments, we can't make amendments to legislation in committees. So it's went through all the proper steps. Now we're here tonight, we need to make those amendments tonight. This is the first chance that we have to make those amendments.
And what were those amendments?
Oh, I couldn't go over every single amendment.
Well, we
It's a
need
large
to be
email.
refreshed on those, because if we don't know what they
Yes.
are, we can't vote on them anyway.
Were they, the
Well, I
ones
sent
that
an
are
email,
underlined, were they
underlined,
changed?
yes, explaining the underline was the amendments, is what I sent to everyone back at the beginning of October.
Okay, so can you go over those? Since we're discussing this tonight
Yeah, let
in
me-
council, and it's back in before council?
Yeah.
I don't think there was any.
Well, why don't we do this? Since I got 2.5 pages, we can just leave it on, and then look at it at the next meeting. If everyone would feel more comfortable. Or, I mean, I can read 2.5 pages if you guys want me to, that's fine. It's up to you guys.
Well,
Keep going.
I'm with Brian.
Do we
here.
need them read? Does anybody need them read?
Yes.
You
Yeah,
need them all
because
read?
I think it
Yeah.
should have been clarified in the committees.
Okay,
That was
yeah.
the purpose of taking those back to the committees, to have them fully discussed, so we know exactly what we're
Right,
facing.
they were, right, we went to committees, they were, fully discussed. Okay, so if you look at the legislation, you'll see, the updated is page 5, section, begins at section 6.8, 80, abortion, it shall be unlawful for any person to procure or perform an abortion. Well, can we do this, can we just read it? Can everybody pull up the amendments and read it? But it was made, even the amendments, I believe, were even made public.
What was the date that it was sent, do you know?
Should have been around. What was the finance, I think the finance and safety meeting for October, it should have been around,
Is it?
yeah, the 11th or the 12th. I think I said the 9th, I think the 11th or the 12th.
Public safety meeting was on the 12th.
Yeah, it was probably on the 12th. Well, they were flip-flopped that month, so that's why we had some confusion on how we handled the legislation.
Was it the
I have
18th?
12th or anything, I have November 3rd, October 20th, and that's it.
Is this it right here?
I don't see them. don't see them.
Is it the,
In your in your 2 pages there, do you have it highlighted, the changes that were made? Where is
Well,
it 2 pages
these are
of
all
changes that were all
changes.
made?
So this front and back is changes, and this is changes, so you have about 2.5 pages of the changes that we had recommended back in October. And I know it's just been some time, but we just couldn't make the changes until this meeting. So we just, basically, we went through the original legislation. Jennifer Hitt and I went through the original legislation. And so, and I don't mean it, you know, in any negative way, but Jennifer is not an expert on this type of legislation. And so we had to have the language cleaned up. A lot of things had to be adjusted to make sure that, you know, just like as we are a city, we have to operate inside state, federal law, and that's what the amendments, that's what the amendments do.
Okay.
Just making
I'd
sure.
like to hear the amendments. I'd like to hear, it's only 2.5 pages. I think
Yeah.
we've had more speech tonight than 2.5 pages, so just for clarification for all the council, because there's other here that would
Sure.
like to hear it as well.
Let me take a drink of water here. So it should be unlawful for any person to procure or perform an abortion of any type at any stage of pregnancy in the city of London. Letter B, it shall be unlawful for any person to knowingly aid or abet an abortion that occurs in the city of London. This section does not prohibit referring a patient to have an abortion which takes place outside of the city. So outside the city limits of London. So we wanted to make sure language was very clear that this only dealt with what took place inside the city of London. The prohibition in this section includes but is not limited to the following acts within the city limits of London, Ohio: knowingly providing transportation to or from an abortion provider, which is located, again, within the city of London. Obviously, the whole purpose of the legislation, if someone wants to have an abortion, they can go outside the city of London. Number 2, giving instructions over the telephone, the internet, or any other medium of communication regarding self-administered abortion taking place within the city of London, providing money with the knowledge that it will be used to pay for an abortion or the costs associated with procuring an abortion within the city of London, Ohio. Number 4, providing an abortion doula services within the city of London, Ohio, coercing or pressuring a pregnant mother to have an abortion against her will within the city of London. So again, it's city of London. Letter C, it shall be an affirmative defense to the unlawful acts described in sections A and B if the abortion was in a response to a life-threatening physical condition aggravated by or caused by and arising from the pregnancy that is a certified physician places a woman in danger of death or a serious risk of substantial impairment of a majorly bodily function. Unless an abortion is performed, the defendant shall have the burden of proving this affirmative defense by a preponderance of evidence. It shall be unlawful for any person to possess or distribute abortion-inducing drugs in the city of London, Ohio. Letter E, no provision in this section may be construed to prohibit any action which occurs outside the jurisdiction of the city of London, Ohio, and no provisions of this section may be construed to prohibit any action occurring within the city of London, Ohio, that aids or abets an action which occurs outside the city of London. Letter F, no provision of this section may be construed to prohibit any conduct protected by the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution as made applicable to state and local governments through the Supreme Court's interpretation of the 14th Amendment by Article 1, Section 2 of the Ohio Constitution. Letter G, under no circumstance may the mother of the unborn child that has been aborted or the pregnant woman who seeks to abort her unborn child may be subject to prosecution or penalty under this section. So there's nothing we can do to the unborn mother, because again, we have to sit inside the Ohio and federal laws. Letter H, for the purpose of this section, the following definitions apply. Abortion means the act of using or prescribing an instrument, a drug, a medicine, or any other substance, device, or means with the intent to cause the death of an unborn child of a woman known to be pregnant. The term does not include birth control devices or oral contraceptives. It does not include Plan B, morning after pills, emergency contraception. An act is not an abortion if the act is done with the intent to save the life or preserve the health of the unborn child, remove a dead unborn child whose death was caused by an accidental miscarriage, or remove an ectopic pregnancy, An unborn child means a natural person from the moment of conception who has not yet left the womb. Abortion-inducing drugs include misoprostol, misoprostol, and any drug or medication that is used to terminate the life of an unborn child. The term does not include birth control devices or oral contraceptives. It does not include Plan B morning after pills or emergency contraceptive. Letter I, mindful of Levitt versus Jane, L 518 U.S. 137, 1996. It's in the context of determining the severability of the state statute regulating abortion. The United States Supreme Court held that an explicit statement of legislative intent is controlling. The provisions and application of this section shall be severable as follows. Number one is the intent of the City Council that every provision, subsection, sentence, clause, phrase, or word of this section and every application of the provision in this section are severable from each other. If any application, if any provision of this section, any person, group of persons, or circumstances is found by a court to be invalid or unconstitutional, then the remaining applications of that provision to all other persons, circumstances shall be severed and may not be effective. All constitutionally valid applications of this section shall be severed from any applications that a court finds to be invalid, leaving the valid applications in force because it is the city's council intent and priority that the valid applications be allowed to stand alone. Even if a reviewing court finds a provision of this section to impose an undue burden in a large or substantial fraction of relevant cases, the application does not present an undue burden, shall be severed from the remaining applications and shall remain in force and shall be treated as the city council had enacted an ordinance limited to the person, group of persons, or circumstances for which the section's application do not present an undue burden. The city council further declares that it would have enacted this section in each provision, section, subsection, sentence, clause, phrase, or word in all constitutional applications of the section, irrespective of the fact that any provision, subsection, section, sentence, clause, phrase, or word of applications of this section were to be declared unconstitutional or to represent an undue burden. Number two, if any court declares or finds a provision of this section facially unconstitutional when there are discrete applications of that provision that can be enforced against a person, group of persons, or circumstances without violating the Constitution, then those applications shall be severed from all remaining applications of the provision, and the provisions shall be interpreted as the city council had enacted a provision limiting the group of persons or circumstances for which the provision's application will not violate the Constitution. If any provision of this section is found by any court to be unconstitutionally vague, then the applications of that provision do not present constitutional vagueness. Problems shall be severed, remain in force consistent with the declarations of that city's council intent and subsections. Number four, no court may decline to enforce the severability requirements in the subsections I-1, I-2, and I-3, and on the ground that severance would rewrite the ordinance or involve the court in legislative or lawmaking activity. A court that declines to enforce or enjoins a locality or government official from enforcing a subset of ordinances, applications is never rewriting an ordinance, as the ordinance continues to say exactly what is said before. A judicial injunction or declaration of unconstitutionality is nothing more than a non-enforcement edict that it can always be vacated by later courts if they have different understandings of what the Constitution requires. It is not a formal amendment of the language in a statute or ordinance. A judicial injunction or declaration of unconstitutionality no more rewrites an ordinance than a decision by an executive official not to enforce a duly enacted statute or ordinance in a limited, defined set of circumstances. Number five, if any federal or state court ignores or declines to enforce the requirements of subsections I-1, I-2, I-3, or I-4, or holds a provision of this section invalid or unconstitutional on its face after failing to enforce the severability requirements of subsections I-1, I-2, and I-3 for any reasons whatsoever, then the mayor shall hold the delegated authority to issue a saving construction of this section that avoids the constitutional problems or other problems identified by the federal or state court while enforcing the provisions of this section to the maximum possible extent. The saving construction issued by the mayor shall carry the same force of law as the ordinance. It shall represent the authority construction of this section in both federal and state judicial proceedings, and it shall remain in effect until the court ruling that declares invalid or enjoins the enforcement of the original provision in this section is overruled, vacated, or reversed. The mayor must issue the saving construction described in subsection I-5 within 20 days after judicial ruling that declares invalid or enjoins the enforcement of a provision of this subsection after failing to enforce the severability requirements of subsections I-1, I-2, and I-3. If the mayor fails to issue the saving construction required by subsections I-5 within 20 days after judicial ruling that declares invalid or enjoins the enforcement of a provision of this ordinance after failing to enforce the severability requirements of subsections I-1, I-2, and I-3, or if the mayor saying construction fails to enforce a provision of the ordinance to the maximum possible extent permitted by the Constitution or other superseding legal requirements are construed by the federal or state judiciaries, then any person may petition for a writ mandamus requiring the mayor to issue the saving construction described in subsection I-5. Whoever violates this section is guilty of a misdemeanor in the first degree.
It was sent out October 12th.
October 12th.
What time? I don't see it.
Not sure.
The only email I have on October 12th came at 1:10.
110. Mine says 110, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Mine doesn't say the time, but I know.
October 12th, 110.
Yeah, the amendments is just to protect the city, that's it. It does not change anything that was put in there for how we handled the previous legislation, the medication, how we handled the mother, anything like that. It was just to clean up the language, okay? Clean up the language, protect the city, make sure that we did this all legally in the correct way for it to be done.
I think it changes the district attorney to county prosecutor too.
I believe so, yeah.
To implore them to enforce
Yes.
the legislation.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, and I can go ahead and say this, I was gonna talk about it later, I think everybody thinks that Mark Lee Dixon and the people in Texas are the ones that brought this all to me. That's absolutely not true. So this was all started before I ever spoke to Mark Lee Dixon.
I just have a couple of comments. We did have a lady who was in the attorney's portion
Yes.
of the Ohio Right to Life, is that correct?
Correct.
Right. And because my main concern was was about the abortion inducing drugs, that they do have other uses besides just abortion. They were originally made for other purposes and then found to also cause abortion. So she has said that with the way that they're defined in here, that those, the other uses would not apply, even though it's very rare that they're used, that unbeknownst to me, I found this out since, because I talk to everybody about this. If I'm not at work and I run into somebody, you're gonna hear me talk about, ask your opinion, what do you think? And I did find out that it is being used, though, for women who have had miscarriages, but have been partial miscarriages, where there is no heartbeat, but all of the product of conception has not passed. And so they do use this medications to complete it. So they can do that in their home and not incur the cost of surgery suite and all that kind of stuff. So that was information I did not know, so I thought I would share it with you.
Yeah.
Do
Which
as you may.
we can amend it if you wanted to say partial miscarriages to even make sure that we cover, because obviously we don't want, the legislation is not designed, definitely not designed to go after, well, and then it goes back to the other part, is it wouldn't matter because a woman cannot come under prosecution. So if we want to add the amendment of partial miscarriage, you can, but just as any woman of any stage, if she gets the medication, goes into her house, performs an abortion, this legislation can't do anything against her.
But since it can be used for that purpose, can it be sold in the city of London for that purpose?
Yeah, the medication, so when you look at the medications, if they have alternative uses, things like that, then, there's nothing that, this legislation can't do anything against those medications. And so, if a mother does receive those medications for that purpose, there's nothing that we can do per this legislation. Because again, if we did, then we would be going into violating the Ohio and federal law, which we cannot do.
Okay, I think we have a question back here. Yeah, if you just stand, please, so we can hear you.
We haven't voted on it.
Okay, I mean, if you do vote it up, if you guys are agreeing to those also some changes. There was quite a few changes. I counted about 45 when I went through it, just in the declaration. Or just in the findings, I'm sorry. I just went through like 2 pages, and I just gave up.
Yeah. I mean, I'm perfectly fine if we want to leave it on to the next meeting. I don't want anybody to do anything they don't feel comfortable with.
All right, so we have amendments that have been made to the legislation. Do we have a motion to accept those amendments to legislation 20721?
Well, I'll retract my amendment.
Until
Yeah,
next
until the next meeting.
meeting.
Yeah, so we don't have to vote on it.
I'm,
If anybody has any, if you have questions, you know what I mean, or.
okay, is that what you're doing? Well, I move to suspend the 3 reading rule on 20721.
A second.
You want to vote on 207 right now?
Yep,
Yeah.
Right now?
right now.
So we have a first and a second.
Roll call.
Yeah, well, I do have something to say here about this legislation too, because it's been here for quite a while and it seems to be sweeping the country. And it's, I think it doesn't matter if you're for or against this legislation. The issue that we're looking at largely is the Constitution and infringing on constitutional rights. I think that this legislation could easily set the stage to start to reverse engineer other constitutional rights such as freedom to speech, right to bear arms. These types of legislative tools may be put in place so they could later be used to pry open larger legislative ideals that can affect the whole country. But they are introduced in small parts with the ultimate goal of systemically weakening our constitutional rights as they are. No matter if you are for or against this legislation, the City of London should not be used as a pawn to trample on constitutional rights and has no enforceable authority to do so. It is dangerous to empower citizens as the authority to become vigilantes to enforce the law. Cities have law enforcement for that purpose. One of the main focuses that we should have here is that this legislation can be viewed as a direct infringement on the U.S. constitutional rights. London, Ohio is a statutory city. As a statutory city, has no standing to enact or enforce this legislation. This is not the stage to infringe on constitutional rights, nor the stage to embolden citizens to enforce the law. There is a conflict of interest and misdirection and uninformed direction as the ability of this legislation. The City of London has no right or jurisdiction to bring this legislation. This legislation contradicts our rights attributed to Roe versus Wade as constitutional rights. These rights will, shall, and cannot be infringed upon, according to the Constitution of the United States of America. Now, we have a first and we have a second. And clerk, could you please take a roll call?
Russell?
Yes.
Peters?
Yes.
Robinson?
Yes.
Hayes?
Yes.
Pitt?
Yes.
Blazer?
Yes.
Smith?
No.
All right, and a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
All right, first and second. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Peters?
No.
Robinson?
Yes.
Hayes?
No.
Pitt?
No.
Blazer?
No.
Smith?
Yes.
Russell?
No.
All right, 20721 does not pass. On to ordinance 21421. Motion to read by title or number.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
All right, clerk, please take the roll call.
Robinson?
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Hitt,
Yes.
Blazer,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Russell,
Yes.
Peters.
Yes.
Reading.
I'm sorry.
Need to-
We
yeah.
got
Yeah,
off
like-
last
Call
year.
for that.
Ordinance 21421, sponsored by Brenda Russell, an ordinance to make appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of London, State of Ohio during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2022.
This is the second reading for our 2022 budget. If there's any questions, if not, we're just going to leave it on for 3 readings.
Thank you. On to our new business, ordinance 21521. Motion to read by title or number.
So moved.
Second.
Clerk, please read the ordinance.
Ordinance 21521, sponsored by Brenda Russell, an ordinance amending Ordinance 20919 to reflect a range of salaries of department heads on non-union personnel.
Yeah, this is the increasing of the non-union. Usually they're the department heads that, are on salaries. They're not included on the union contract. So therefore, we keep their salaries compatible with the increases that the union employees get. And it has been, the union increases have been about a 2% overall raise to make these department heads compatible with the union jobs as they get their union increases. Any questions? And this is very, very important because what we're running into is when our department heads retire or they leave for whatever reason, like out at the sewer department, they have to be certified. We are running into a problem of getting somebody to take that head position because of the salaries. And in order to keep the turnover or even get applicants, we have to keep these department heads' salaries at an acceptable rate that's compatible with other cities. If not, then we're going to be department headless. So these increases for our non-bargaining union employees are very, very crucial, that we keep them in sync with what the union members are getting. It's very, very important. Very, very important. These department heads are paid according to their skills and things. So any more questions? I think we all got a no, if you weren't in the finance meeting.
Yeah, well, we got a copy with that.
Yeah, you got a copy with the legislation. I think everybody got a chance to see those. They're within.
Well, I think it's also important that, these are the people that enforce what we as council want to happen, and so we need to keep them happy. Not so much, I don't make it that way. They're doing a very important job. We need to keep their pay such that people that are working in much lower positions are not making the same amount of money they are. So we need to support them as they support us.
And I think there's an emergency.
There's an emergency clause on this.
Is there?
Team.
Yeah, there is emergency clause on this. Any more questions? I make a motion that we suspend the 3 reading rule.
Second.
All right, second. And clerk, please take the roll call for suspension.
Robinson,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Hitt,
Yes.
Blazer,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Russell,
Yes.
Peters.
Yes.
And a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
All right, the first and the second. Clerk, please take the roll call for adoption.
Hayes,
Yes.
Hitt,
Yes.
Blazer,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Russell,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Robinson.
Yes.
All right, 21521 has been adopted. On to resolution 21621, a motion to read by title or number.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all right, clerk, please read the resolution.
Resolution 21621, sponsored by Brenda Russell, a resolution authorizing the auditor to transfer funds and increase appropriations.
Okay, this is the shortage of the pension fund that I spoke about at the finance meeting. This is legislation to have those funds transferred over to appropriate pension fund. Any questions? Is this emergency? I think it is.
It is.
Yeah, this emergency also. Yeah, we need to get that done by the end of, before, so we can close out them books.
Right.
I make a motion we suspend the 3 reading rule if there's no questions.
All right.
I'll second.
Second. All right, clerk, please take the roll call for suspension.
Hitt,
Yes.
Blazer,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Russell,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Robinson.
Yes.
Hayes.
Yes.
Okay. And a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
All right, clerk, please take the roll call for adoption.
Blazer,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Russell,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Hitt.
Yes.
Okay. All right, on to Resolution 21721, motion to read by title or number.
So moved.
Second.
Second. All right, clerk, please read the resolution.
Resolution 21721, sponsored by Carl Blazer, a resolution increasing appropriations.
This is the resolution to take the donation from the $15,000 generous donation from the Merrimack Miracle organization to the Parks and Recs, so that we can apply it to the cost of the playground equipment that we're purchasing for that park.
Okay.
The reason that they've made it an emergency measure is we have found that the cost of this equipment is rising about as fast as gasoline prices, if not a little bit faster. So we're afraid of how we're going to, if we let it wait until another month or month and a half, that it's going to increase the price of what the equipment is.
Just for a little bit, in case you're not aware of what the Merrimack Miracle Park is, that's actually, it's a committee that was formed in April to help do some upgrades to Merrimack Park. We met with the city, we've been in close contact with the city, we are working hand in hand, and the committee themselves has pledged $75,000, and right now, $15,000 of it is going into cities so that the city can purchase this playground equipment. Now, this will be done in 3 phases, probably. The first part, if you know where Merrimack Park is, it's off of Tolan and off of Lincoln over by the sanitation department. And the first phase is right up front. We're going to redo the basketball courts, put in park benches, fix the shelter house, and put in a playground. I do apologize that I don't have a copy of the playground equipment. I should have brought it. It will be red, it won't be blue, but, and it'll go up, that's the first phase, and the second phase will be some youth baseball, softball fields, so that the traveling teams, the rec teams, and the city of London will have access to ball fields, because right now they have to go outside of town, and and it's terrible, where we have teams from London, but we always have to go somewhere else and play. We can never bring anybody here. And so that will be, probably phase 2, and farther down in, there'll be some additions, maybe a snow hill. There is a pond back there that has fish. It can be fixed up. So this is probably a 3-phase project, and we accept all donations, no matter how small or how large they are. You just make your check out to Merrimack Park Miracle, I think it's post office box. Ooh, I can't do that. I wish my sister Marilyn was here. She never forgets. She's a school teacher. And so you could contact me, or you could call Amy, and I can get her the information. But that is where this $15,000 is going, and the city and the Park and Recreation Department also. Some's coming out of Capitol, some's coming from Park and Recs, and some's coming from the committee. But we can only do this together. The city cannot do it all by itself, and the committee cannot do it all by itself. We have to have a team effort here.
All right.
Do we have a picture of the equipment that we can put on?
Do you, Amy?
You'll have to bear with me.
Okay.
Yeah, I was trying to get your attention.
Yes, ma'am, you have a question?
It'll be right up front where the, no, down in between, probably beside the,
Here it is.
yes, probably in that area, somewhere, yeah, there. There's
Well
our,
done, Amy.
there it is.
Good job, Amy.
Did something right tonight.
That's, yeah, that'll look really nice over there.
That is it.
Compared to what's there now. So, all right, thank you.
There's an emergency on this.
And there is an
There's an
emergency.
emergency on this.
Yes.
Any more questions? I make a motion, we suspend the 3 reading rule.
I'll second it.
All right, clerk, please take the roll call for suspension.
Smith,
Yes.
Russell,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Robinson.
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Pitt,
Yes.
Blazer.
Yes.
All right, and a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
All right, clerk, please take the roll call for adoption.
Russell,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Robinson.
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Pitt,
Yes.
Blazer,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
All right. Resolution 21821, motion to read by title or number.
So moved.
Second.
All right, clerk, please read the resolution.
Resolution 21821, sponsored by Josh Peters, a resolution increasing appropriations.
All right, these appropriations are for the purchase of the playground equipment. We need appropriation increase in the Improvement Recreation Fund for $20,000 and the Capital Equipment Lease Purchase Recreation Fund for $25,000.
There's emergency on there, too.
And this will aid in purchasing this equipment.
Okay. And there's an emergency on this as well, so that,
Yeah. Any other questions for? I move to suspend the 3 reading rule.
I'll second.
all right, clerk, please take the roll call for suspension.
Peters,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Pitt,
Yes.
Blazer,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Russell.
Yes.
Okay, and a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
All right, clerk, please take the roll call.
Robinson,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Pitt,
Yes.
Blazer,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Russell,
Yes.
Peters.
Yes.
Okay. All right, on to ordinance 21921, a motion to read by title or number.
Make a motion to read by title and number.
A second.
All right, clerk, please read the ordinance.
Ordinance 21921, sponsored by Andrew Hitt, an ordinance amending 454 of the codified ordinances.
Are you able to pull up the map of the street? So this is kind of in relation to traffic lights that would be removed. The amendment involves parking of compact cars and fines that would be involved with those compact cars parked in, or non-compact cars parked in those spots that are designated for compact cars. So this, from the upper right corner to the lower left corner, that's Second Street. And from the upper left corner to the lower right corner, that's Main Street. So the spots that would be eliminated to help with visibility are marked with the yellow X. And then the next spaces to that would be designated as compact car parking spots. And that's to help, I know there's been a lot of complaints about visibility when you're pulling out from Second Street to Main Street, or across Main Street or turning left. So that's to help with safety issues and visibility. And then also the other, these don't apply to the amendment, but the other streets that are affected is Oak and High Street, and the first spots there would be eliminated also. And then on Fourth and Main, the first spot on the side of the courthouse. Those are all to help increase visibility, but the only spots affected by this amendment would be Second and Main, which would be designated for compact cars in the first spot. And then the fine would be $25 if a non-compact car is parked in those spots.
Okay.
So, I don't know if there's any questions or,
Do we need to get this moving, or, I know there's no emergency
yeah,
clause on it, but
yeah,
then.
if there's no
there-
questions, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the 3 reading rule.
Oh, okay. I second.
All right, clerk, please take the roll call for suspension to 1921.
Hayes,
Yes.
Hitt,
Yes.
Blazer,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Russell,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Robinson.
Yes.
All right, and a motion to adopt.
Make a motion to adopt.
A second?
All right, clerk, please take the roll call for adoption.
Hitt,
Yes.
Blazer,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Russell,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes.
Hayes.
Yes.
All right. Now on to roundtable. We'll start with Mr. Smith.
I'd just like to thank everyone for coming out tonight. You know, I thought that with the rally saying that we were going to vote tonight, I did think that was odd. And then I didn't think much about it, you know, I thought maybe just misinformation. And then when I saw the mayor's video, I knew we were in big trouble. I knew that people had had a conversation and had gotten together and decided to vote it down.
Oh, no.
I thought it was so odd. I'm not saying everyone did that.
No.
I thought it was so odd that the mayor, on our second reading, had language that he knew we would do what was right. I thought that was very odd. And so, but that's when I knew for sure we were in pretty big trouble. I knew it wasn't gonna pass. I'll just leave it at, I can stand before my constituents. I've represented them very well. I've did what I was asked to do. And then I haven't brought religion in it. I'll bring it in now, and I can stand before God and know that I did what was right. And that's all I have.
All right, thank you. All right, on to Mrs. Blazer.
First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out. For the most part of this ordinance, I tried to stay in the neutral zone. For a long time, I wasn't sure which way I was going to go. I tried to get as much information. I've listened to everybody's comments. I have put it out on social media and listened to those comments. I've prayed about it myself and listened to those comments. So I did not speak with anybody ahead of time. I took the mayor's speech as being, be that what it may, it will, whichever way it comes down, it will come down the right way. That's how I took it. But also important is to thank all of our veterans. Thank you for your service to our country, and also to the veterans' families. I've been in those families that have had family members go to war. I've had family members that have went into the service and haven't come back home. And I know that those families make a big sacrifice also, so I wish to thank them too.
All right, thank you. On to Mr. Hitt.
Yeah, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out and voicing your opinions on both sides of this and coming to committee meetings and voicing your opinions on this as well as at committee meetings. It's a difficult position to be in with regards to this legislation. I guess I'd come down on my obligations to council as far as not making London financially at risk. I feel like this is probably going to, or already is going to the Supreme Court, and wait to see how that comes out. I know Texas is already in Supreme Court. Mississippi goes to Supreme Court in December, and there's several other states that I think that would go to the Supreme Court also. My feeling, I guess, is that it's also beyond the bounds of our authority as a local government, and should be dealt with at the state level. Regardless of my position on abortion, I cast my vote based on my obligations to my position as council member. I would like to compliment Anthony for bringing this forward, though. It's difficult. issue to bring up and to deal with, and the possible confrontation that would occur, so.
All right, thank you. On to Mr. Hayes.
Thank you. I'd like to, first of all, I want to do this. I want to thank all city employees, every city employee we have, every city supervisor we have for a job well done. And we thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Secondly, I'm an ordained minister. This was a very difficult decision tonight. I don't think that I have the right to legislate something over somebody else's body. And I've prayed about it. Believe me, I've prayed about it. I had no hearing, no meetings with anybody before this meeting. I had my mind fairly made up, but it's just like we've got somebody in Washington that's asleep half the time trying to tell people when to get shots and when not to get shots and when to do this and when to do that. That's not the way you do it. So I don't feel that I have a right to sit up here and legislate people doing abortions or not doing abortions. There was too much in it that I felt was a risk to the city, and I just didn't feel comfortable with going ahead with it. I'm pro-life as much as anybody, believe me, I am. But again, I think the responsibility that I have here is not to get into setting laws that just can't be taken care of. This would be so hard to enforce. It would be a nightmare for the city. And we just don't need that. And I applaud Anthony for bringing it forth. I know where his heart's at, and he's a good man. He's a good pastor. He's doing what he thinks right, and, you know, you can't fault him for that. And I'm doing what I think is best for the city of London and for the citizens of London who elected me to this post. So with that, I'll say also thank you, Mrs. Blazer. I'm a Vietnam combat veteran with the Navy, and I thank you for that. And I thank any veterans that are out here tonight. I want to thank all veterans for your sacrifice. I have several Marine friends that were killed that never made it home. I have one friend that was awarded the Medal of Honor, the highest honor you can receive. And he lost his life earning that. And I thank council. I know it's been a hard night. It's been a hard week. But I thank you all from the bottom of my heart for service that you do. And I just say, God bless City Council. God bless the city of London, Ohio. Amen.
Mr. Robinson.
I just want to echo what everyone else is saying. As much as we may be pro-life or we have these decisions, I'm also pro-choice. What we see nowadays is so much of someone else trying to control you about what you should do and what you shouldn't do. And we see it so much at the higher levels. And I did not, from my personal settings, think that it was my choice to tell someone else what they should do with their selves. As much as I don't agree with it, I'm not the one that has to make those decisions. That person has to make those decisions, and they have to live with it, and they have to deal with it when they meet the good Lord. I want to rescind my vote. I was supposed to be no for adoption. I want to rescind my vote on that. It was not supposed to be a yes, it was supposed to be a no. I don't know if I can go on record for that.
Yeah, we'll have to take a look with Jennifer.
I want to make sure that I'm
process.
on record saying no, because I don't think that our city government should be involved in personal matters. So I just appreciate everybody coming out. I've taken all this with open arms. I have a hard time with it. I just think that we need to step away and take care of ourselves, our families, quit worrying about everybody else.
Mr. Peters.
I just want to concur with Rich, Andy, Brian said, I have not talked to Pat. I've not talked to anybody out in this crowd about any of this. But the emails I've gotten outweigh everything. Like Rich said, I'm not here to tell you what to do with your body. So we're just going to leave it at that. Again, thank you, everybody that's come out here and made comments. We appreciate that.
Thank you. On to Mrs. Russell.
Well, I so wish that everybody in the city of London would give their life to the Lord, and we wouldn't have issues like this. And I so wish that I could tell them something about the Lord, and that would prevent them from making the decision to have an abortion. But that's not the case. You know, they all have free will. And every person, I tell every person that doesn't have an abortion, and every person that does, unless you repent of any sin that you have committed, and when you stand before the Lord, you will be held accountable for it. You know, I wish that I could make everybody be right with the Lord and follow his will. But we can't do that. And we see we can't do it because we've been in court for years and years and years and years and years. You know, I so wish that there was a snap of the finger, a zap of a law that would make everybody follow God's will. But it's not so. But Scripture tells you that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. So abortion is still going to happen. We will no legislation we make and let the people of the United States make different choices not to have it. We will not stop abortion with any law. I so wish the law would. I say, Anthony, I wish it would. I wish we could make laws and everybody, but it hasn't happened yet. And if you believe it's going to happen, you better get on your knees. That's the only way it's going to happen. That's where the change got to come. That's where the change. No, Anthony, we didn't collaborate. Ain't nobody collaborated. But you know, we're all allowed our opinions of what we hear and what we don't hear. But no.
All right. And I do thank everyone who came out and drove the miles, and even if you walked here because you live right in town, we heard from a lot of people. And as city council, that's our job. Our job is to listen to the people. We had an overwhelming majority of people through email, through Facebook, through your presence in council meetings that were not for this legislation.
I'm going to correct you there.
And
That is not correct at all. That is.
You are out of order. You're out of order.
That is not.
You are out of order, Anthony. You're out of order.
I have no.
You've
problem.
had your
I'm
chance
not
to
gonna
speak.
argue.
Now it's my
That is
turn to
not
speak. You have
speak
had
the truth.
You've had your chance.
We got emails
You've had your
from
chance.
all over. No, actually, I
Okay.
didn't get much to speak.
Anthony, you're out of order. Okay, it's my turn to speak.
Go ahead. I'm not
You
gonna
need
argue.
to respect this position. This is council president. It's my turn to speak. You are out of order.
Go ahead.
Stop speaking. You've had your
ahead.
turn.
Go ahead.
The overwhelming majority of emails and people that have visited here are not for this legislation. We've heard it over and over. You've heard it through the committee, and we had a sprinkling of people who were for this. The way that I feel about it is that this is legislation that would infringe on the rights that were given to us through the Constitution. If you start to use things like this in small cities and you make little headways, it's going to affect the larger picture. Like I said, at some point, we may be looking at defending freedom of speech, or we may be looking at defending the right to bear arms if this is able to go forward, because this would definitely infringe on constitutional rights that we already have. We can't be swayed, and we can't be hoodwinked by people who have a larger agenda and who want to use us to carry that out. If you try to reverse engineer the Constitution, I'm glad we have legal people out there. I'd like to give a kudos to Jennifer Hitt for everything that she's done in this. I think she's a great law director, and she's done everything that she can to help guide us. I respect her opinion on this matter, and that's her job in the city. So I'd like to thank her too for what she's done, and I thank everyone, no matter what side you're on, for all of your input in this. And I'd like to thank our council. And I too like to say that I did not speak with the mayor or collaborate with him. I don't think I collaborate with the mayor on anything. So I guarantee you I didn't. I don't even consult him on chewing gum. So with that said, a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.